I love this movie because it is hilarious, very quotable. There's like long. It's not a lot of movies that I can really think like, no, not only do I know their line, but I know the next maybe 3 or 4 lines just in my head. But it's also a comedy, but as you get older, you're like, is this like a horror movie? Because you start to side with Richard Dreyfuss's, or at least I do, where I'm like, this guy really didn't do anything wrong, like to be tortured.
No.
And this whole movie is him being tortured.
Don't you get it? Everything he's done violates the doctor-patient relationship. Don't you understand? This man is crazy.
I worked very hard to get where I am. You understand me?
Just tell him you won't treat him anymore.
Catherine, that's easy for you to say.
I'm going to die.
For the first time in my life, I feel like there's hope.
You are going to die.
I feel like I can be somebody.
As a child, I would watch this movie like very young, like 6th, 7th grade. And I just didn't understand. I was like, why doesn't he want to hang out with Bill Murray? Like, I don't get why he's being so mean.
Right.
And then as an adult watching it, I'm like, why is his family not freaking out?
Yes. They turn on him quickly.
Immediately.
Yeah.
They're like, they love Bob right off the bat because he's like, he wins the wife over just by being like, you're so much prettier than your pictures.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, he's got her after that.
Which, I mean, maybe leads you to think, like, maybe that's how starved for any kind of good whatever. But then you're like, you're a kid, you don't know. And I don't even know. That doesn't seem to be really written in the script. So it is, they just turn on him so fucking quickly that you're like, oh my God, that would be the worst feeling where you're like,
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, this guy's really carefree. He's like, yeah, because he doesn't have to pay the fucking bills. I got us we have a lake house in Lake Winnipesaukee.
For now.
I'm working. I got a book, New York Times bestseller. I'm on Good Morning America. That's not good enough for you?
Yeah, I didn't watch the movie till about 10 years ago. So the first time I watched it, I was old enough to pick up on all that. So I kind of, and I love Bill Murray, but I would like, to be honest, it was down at the bottom for my Bill Murray movies because I was just like, it was the first time I was like, man, he's kind of annoying and
He's like a psycho.
yeah, he's a little bit of a psycho. But then rewatching it, I did enjoy it just so much more. Just
Yeah.
already knowing where things are, and you do start to see though that I don't know, he kind of deserves it a little bit,
Right.
with how he's acting. Like he's so high and mighty, and he's telling everybody about, oh, I got the interview coming up, like.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he's like a little prickish for sure. And you get the sense that, like, yeah, like whoever the previous psychologist is clearly like, must have been like, oh, I know exactly.
Oh.
Like, give this. Bill Murray is It Follows. He's the character in It Follows. So it's like, I have to pass you on to somebody else
Yeah.
just so I get out of the cycle for a little bit.
It's gonna follow you. Somebody gave it to me, and I passed it to you.
You feel so bad for Richard Dreyfuss in this movie. And apparently, like, I didn't do like a ton of research, but I know so much about this movie just from all the times I've watched it. And apparently they did not get along.
Hated each other,
Which makes me feel like that had to have added to the performance.
I think
At least on Bill Murray's side and maybe Richard Dreyfuss's as well.
I think if you're going to cast Bill Murray in anything, it's going to be super appropriate if you want them to not get along with people.
Right.
Because it seems like every time we've done a Bill Murray movie, we start reading like the research, and it's like Harold Ramis was his best friend, and on Groundhog's Day, they like almost like stopped becoming friends because
Yeah.
he worked with him, and they just like couldn't get along.
It's crazy because Charlie's Angels, he was kind of like, they said he was like a nuisance on that set. So it's a really weird thing because his whole persona, at least publicly and on the movies, is that he doesn't really care that much.
Yeah.
Right? In Ghostbusters, he's like, I don't fucking know. He doesn't even know if it's real or not until like all starts happening. And then he kind of portrays that as well. Like whenever he's doing those like pro-am golfing things where you're like, there's this weird sense of he's trying to be like, I'm just like, I go to minor league baseball games, I get drunk, I go to parties and do people's dishes and shit like that. But then deep down, there must be something going nuts because he's got like some rage.
I think he wants people to all have these like great impressions of him that he doesn't know. But when he works with people and knows them, it's almost like he like doesn't
Can't live up to that day to day.
Yeah, I
maybe.
think it's just like, this is a one-off. Like,
Right.
I'll give these people great experiences.
perhaps I wonder if Bill Murray is the type of actor, like, there's sometimes there's athletes in team sports where it's like you actually kind of do have to keep someone they hate on the team just because it keeps them locked in a way.
Yeah.
I always felt that way. Like, it always seemed like Kobe always hated at least somebody, if not
Yeah,
multiple people on the team.
definitely.
And it's like that produces better results for him. Can I say that that's better for mental health? No. But maybe Bill Murray's the same way, where it's like, oh, we have to get Richard Dreyfuss. They're going to fucking hate each other. The whole point of the movie is that they're going to hate each other and they want to kill each other. Like, let's go for it.
Chevy Chase was in the role for Richard Dreyfuss, and they like notoriously hate each
yeah.
other.
Oh, what?
And I was like, dude, that would have been fun.
They came to, didn't they? One of them didn't Bill Murray punch Chevy Chase?
Oh, that was on like SNL whenever
Yeah.
he hosted, and like I know he called him a medium talent.
Which is
Because
hilarious.
Chevy Chase was
'Cause
the
he has some
replacement, kind of, or like he was
he
like,
came back to host, but when he left SNL, he just had a "I'm better than everybody" vibe.
ah.
But who do y'all like better, Chevy Chase or Bill Murray?
I would say Bill Murray for me. I mean, it's different because Chevy Chase was, as a physical comedian, like
Mhm.
pretty unparalleled. At least, like, I didn't watch a lot of like Buster Keaton or any of that kind of stuff, but just from like, I remember Spies Like Us. Not a great movie overall, but all the physical stuff that Chevy Chase was doing when he was like cheating on the test. And he had like an eye patch with the answers on it. And then he had like a whole fake arm. Remember that? He had
Yeah,
like his
yeah.
arm in a sling. And then that whole thing was fake. There was like some really great stuff. But for me, Bill Murray, he just had that run of, I mean, this included, What About Bob included, where it was just like, oh, everything you're in, I just kind of like, I guess identified with a little bit of the slackerism.
No,
that
I've
runs
always
through.
loved Bill. It's like 5 years ago, it would have been no question Bill Murray, but I've been watching more Chevy Chase lately, and it's
Okay.
like, damn, he's pretty damn funny.
Yeah.
His cameo in Dirty Work as the doctor that like
Yeah.
will only do the heart transplant if they like help him with his gambling
Yeah.
debt.
Wait a minute. You bet against Rocky in Rocky 3? Hindsight's 2020, my friend.
I know there's really nobody to blame for this but myself. Well, I don't know, maybe the Buffalo Bills, the Boston Red Sox, or Mr. T, or the Jets.
Wait a minute, Mr. T, are you telling me that you bet on the fight in Rocky 3 and that you bet against Rocky?
Hindsight is 2020, my friend.
Another notorious kind of prick
Yeah.
on set. It may be even worse
I
because
think
he's been caught on tape.
worse. Yeah, well, the whole Community stuff,
Right.
with like him saying like racist shit to Donald Glover and Nicole Brown. But like I read a story that just like broke my heart. That was like, it was after he'd been fired from Community, and it was his daughter's wedding, and like Lauren Michaels was there, and he's about to walk his daughter down the aisle, and he's literally talking to Lauren. He's like, "Hey, when do you think I can host SNL again?" And that Lauren had to be like, "Let's just focus on getting your daughter married
Oh,
today."
man.
bud." Like
That is sad.
it's like it hurts my heart to like feel like, oh God,
It's just omnipresent in your brain. Like, when do I do it? When do I do it? When do I do
I
it?
gotta ask him. I gotta ask.
I'm imagining he's walking his daughter down the aisle and pratfalls.
Yeah. I got to show him I
still
still
got
got
it.
it. Yeah, exactly. Or he's asking his daughter, like, when do you think they're going to have me on? It's an interesting, you also wonder, like, how many other actors were like that. And, like, was it the time period in which this was all happening, which was, all in 80s, 90s,
The
70s?
White man heyday.
White man heyday.
There's no cameras.
When they're running
no
amok,
phones,
yeah,
you
they're
know.
like, oh, no one was recording on their phones. There's
bring-
no one caught me.
we'll
And
bring a
now they're
pound of
kind of
blow.
like, yeah, some of this shit ain't flying anymore. You see it a lot now where it's like older actors who are very distinguished or very long careers, they'll be doing some kind of, B part in a movie, and then they're like, yeah, we had to get rid of him because he's just kind of like harassing people. And you're like, oh, man,
That's tough.
how rampant was all that?
Same thing you're talking about. Burt Reynolds on Boogie Nights, infamously, him and the director Paul Thomas Anderson, they got into it.
Oh.
And same thing. He thought he should have been the star. I think he wanted to be Mark Wahlberg's
That's
character.
crazy. He gets in a fight with his mom, and you're like, but Burt Reynolds is older than his mom in this movie. Like, he's like, I don't give a shit. Just put me in there.
I just want to hang dong at the end. man.
Right, exactly. Just give me that, like, end monologue.
So the first thing we got you,
Oh.
So this is Donald Sutherland on Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh,
When he gets
nice.
turned into the dog.
Hell yeah.
I saw that was one of your favorite sci-fi films.
Yeah, I just watched it this year.
Yeah?
It was one of those that I always heard about it, but no one had ever really been like, this is a great horror movie. And so I finally, with all the downtime I have touring and whatnot, I'll have like multiple hours where I'm just like, well, what am I doing until the next show? Should I just be like, oh, well, what movie? It's definitely been I'll watch that one day, and it just never came to pass. So I finally watched it gearing up for Halloween, and I was like, I loved it. I loved how like multi-layered it was for movies from that time period, like late 70s and before. There was no VHS. There was no, you're going to be able to see this movie 20 times. You see it in the theater, maybe you could go back. But that is a movie that you're like, oh, this almost gets deeper the more I watch it. Like the beginning of that movie, you kind of assume, oh, this is the beginning of the invasion. But as you watch it, you're like, I think it's been going on for a while. Because as they're as they're first having conversations about like what's going on, you'll see people that are in their offices that are just standing there in the background.
Interesting.
And it requires multiple viewings to kind of see all that stuff. Or like they'll have like a long conversation and you just see in the background, the way it's shot, you just see these really long corridors and there's just a guy waxing the floors, but the whole time he's just staring at them. So it's like, even when you're at the beginning of this movie, you're like, well, maybe there's time to catch this or stop this invasion. You're like, no, I think like this is maybe near the end of it all because they've already infiltrated. Like the beginning of that movie, you see garbage trucks coming up, and the garbage trucks are filled with that hair.
Yeah.
And then you see that hair is part of the transformation. So you're like, if that's all up in the trucks already, how long has this been going on?
That's a good point. I didn't think about it, and
I haven't either.
It's turned so fast. You know? Like, it's like 2 days and everybody's changed. And got a whole warehouse.
Exactly. And the casting of like Leonard Nimoy was really brilliant because after watching it a couple times, you can kind of sense when he does turn, but being known for Spock, being known for not emitting emotions, it doesn't read as anything bad.
He's so stoic.
Right, because you're like, well, oh, he's trying to be this voice of reason in
and
this
you just
movie.
trust him because of Spock.
Yeah. Right. And then, you watch it a few times.
We should have known better. Like, of course he would be helping with the alien invasion.
Exactly. Yeah, good point. But yeah, no, I watched that. And what's also nice was that I had definitely seen the end before, but I had not seen it like that's Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I just saw Donald Sutherland going like or whatever.
That's fun. Then when you get to go, oh
yeah,
my God, finally.
So when I finally saw it, I was like, oh, that's where it's from, and I didn't know what was coming. So what I also like, I mean, you can tie this into both of these movies, and I don't know necessarily if this is true about What About Bob, but I also miss the time in film where they were actually filmed on locations, physical locations. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, at least the 74 remake. That's San Francisco. I mean, that's a San Francisco movie.
That's another thing I love about it. Like, I didn't watch it until we saw that, and we're like, okay, we need to watch this just to talk to you about it. But I loved it for a lot of reasons, like just the paranoia, but the setting. I love 70s New York or San Francisco.
Yeah.
Just the gritty, dirty city. It's great.
It's grimy. It's like the beginning. It's like you can see some things that have carried over in decor too. But people's homes, like the way that dialogue was. I also thought Invasion was great because that whole Donald Sutherland, and I can't remember the actor's name, the actress's name who plays
the young girl.
Yeah. And they have such a good where you're like, oh, I guess they're just really good friends. It doesn't, obviously it becomes more than that as they go through this situation, but I thought that was really ahead of its time almost to not be like, well, they got to be together, right? Because why else would he be doing all this stuff?
It did feel like he definitely
he was into her.
Yeah,
he was into her.
I think he was like her husband's an alien or her boyfriend's an alien. Now's my time.
Yeah. He did. Yeah, he was willing to take the shot when it was available. You see so many movies where it's just like, all right, they fall in love or whatever. Though it'll just happen. It doesn't seem organic. They actually seem to really care about each other, and they seem to know a lot about each other. So I really did feel for him where he like
when she turns.
Well, it's like he hears the ship. He hears like Amazing Grace on the bagpipes. You're like, they're good. Let me go check this out. Nope, it's just playing on the radio. And he goes back, and then she's like shriveled up, and then her new self appears all naked. And it's just,
I'm surprised he ran away.
I really thought it was like, well, this isn't how I envisioned it.
Yeah, all right. He's like, fuck it. All right.
Gotta go.
Turn me.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. You know who that prostitute is?
That is, yeah. It's
our new favorite game. Name that prostitute.
It is, oh boy, she's cousins with, he was in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? He's in so much stuff.
Any guesses, Nick?
Oh my God! It's the lady from The Sopranos.
Yeah. Janice.
Tony's sister.
Yes.
Yeah, Janice.
Oh my
his older
gosh,
sister.
I always knew.
Totoro. Aida Totoro. I think that's her name.
Oh, okay.
Man, what a pull!
She's cousins with John Turturro.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Now I'm learning.
Yeah. And I guess here's a scene that leads to the point of him being kind of a prick because they're like, hey, he's dead. And he's like, I don't know, whatever. Which I mean, I also don't, it's like he just met this guy. Would it really hurt him?
Not really.
It's probably, I would assume inside, what do I fucking know? But maybe they do have to have some kind of like, I can't mourn this person.
Yeah, I'm sure it happens in their profession.
Right.
Yeah. Next gift we got you.
Oh, hell yeah. That rules. At first I was like, oh, just a glass hot dog. And then I was like, oh, very cool. Hell yeah. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, I loved your joke about, replacing weed with something like eating a hot dog.
Oh, yeah.
That cracked me up.
Sometimes I get worried that I am addicted to weed. Was me saying that your wake-up call? So sometimes I try to do like a thought process where I'm like, okay, to see if I'm really addicted, I'll just replace the action of smoking weed with anything else. Instead of every time I went outside to smoke weed, what if I went outside and ate a hot dog? Would my friends say something? Would they be concerned? Absolutely. They'd be like, hey, it's really good to see you, man. Did I see you in an alley with 6 other dudes sharing a hot dog? Is that... kind of a bite-by-pass situation?
Yeah, I think about that quite a lot. Like, because all my friends are... There's a few that drink and smoke, but most of them drink. And when people drink, they kind of, if they're in a group, people like watch each other. So it's like, damn, he's had like 4 or 5 shots. Should we like, hey man, you doing all right? But no one checks in on you when you smoke weed. So I would just I could smoke 20 joints and no one would be like, what's going on with you? So I was just trying to think of like, what is something benign that I could do that many times where they would eventually be like, are you okay? And if it was like, yeah, if I just kept pulling out hot dogs, I'm going to go outside and eat a hot dog real quick. They'd be like, what the fuck is going on with you?
Well, yeah, it's just such a great joke because, I mean, when you smoke, you can compare it to something like drinking where you just go, well, if I was drinking, this would be a bigger problem. But
exactly.
Having it just compared to something as silly as a hot dog is just great.
What you got there, a pocket dog?
But yeah, now you don't have to choose.
Yeah, exactly. A 2-in-1. I sometimes wonder if I smoke too much. It doesn't really doesn't negatively affect you all that much in a bad way. You're like, oh, I took a nap. Jeez, I got to get this shit together. I got tired.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to, there's no rock bottom to smoking weed.
No, you just have to one day be like, I think I'm there. Maybe.
Yeah. I guess I'm good now. which makes it kind of tricky where you're like, oh, to me it doesn't really like I said, negatively affect me or anything, but there are times where it's like, did I need to smoke weed before this? Like it becomes kind of like a Pavlovian response where I'm like, oh, I gotta go do 4 errands. Well, I know it'll make those errands a little bit better.
And
Or
take 3 times as long.
yeah. Or first dates. I've gone to first dates completely stoned, and I've been like, what am I doing? What a weird version for this. They're just meeting me, and I'm like, you ever, yeah, just
You ever eat a hot dog in the
yeah,
alley?
exactly. You want to go eat? Let's go eat a hot dog. And I'll try to, to me, I can't. First dates are really hard for me to do like a sit down, nice restaurant. It feels like a job interview because you're like sitting across from them. It's static. There's nothing happening other than food coming, and then you got to eat and be like, no, let me finish. So I'm a big proponent of like, let's just walk around. Let's walk, and if we get hungry, whatever we find on the walk, let's eat that. But I think most people are not inclined to do that kind of stuff. It's very stone behavior to be like, let's just walk around. And then in my mind, if there was a hot dog guy on the corner, it's like, fuck it, let's do this, huh?
They smell great.
Yeah. It would be perceived as like, oh, he doesn't want to spend money. But I'm like, this is more organic. If you really want to know what life would be like with me, then this is kind of it. We're going to be wandering around.
But no, I agree. I love a good walk just because, you don't even have to make eye contact. You can just look straight ahead and talk and no pressure. At any point in time, you can be like, all right, I'm out.
Right. Oh, look at that house's door. That's a weird door. Like, you can just do stuff like that.
It is hard because if I meet a girl online or something, I will be like, hey, we go eat coffee, take a hike or something. Usually girls are like, I would never go on a hike with you.
Yeah, let's go into the woods.
Yeah.
Turn off your phone. Don't bring it with you. Let's just go off the
Do you
grid.
know how to turn off your location?
Yeah.
What?
What if we just mailed our phones to a different place?
I actually have a Yonder pouch that I use on first
Yeah,
dates.
exactly. I just in case you're recording me, I'm very charming. I don't want to get
I don't want
out.
my game getting out.
Yeah, exactly. This is kind of I got a corner I occupy.
I'm still practicing this.
Yeah.
I'd rather not for people to see it yet. It's not finished.
Absolutely. So this is this scene when Murray meets up with him, it's kind of crazy that there aren't more townspeople being like, what the fuck is going on?
No, I agree. It's movie logic, but just the fact that he just runs into him like that.
Yeah.
On the first 2 or 3 screams.
Yeah,
It's that's so lucky.
It would be like if we went down to Avondale and just started screaming your name, hoping you would do the pod.
Zach! I need.
Yeah. Get me.
We're not doing well right now.
I do that. That's a very line that I quote pretty often to friends is like the gimme, I need.
Is that hot dog related?
Yeah, just telling that I don't have my wallet on me. Just I think you can see in my eyes I need this.
Gimme. I need. Gimme.
Okay, all right.
I think this couple are some of my favorite characters in the
Yeah.
whole movie. Just their hatred for Richard Dreyfuss.
He's a son of a bitch.
I love that they're pulling for his son, even like when he does the dive, they're like, way to go, Siggy.
Yeah.
Like, they love his family,
Yeah.
but they hate him.
They've been able to be like, actually, the family's not the problem. It's just Leo.
And
So
they
let's
just
not be
happen
mean to the
there.
kids.
They happen to be there every the house blows up. Yes.
Well, it was like the Gutmans, right?
The Gutmans.
The Gutmans, and it's like it seems like they also live on the lake. Like,
Yeah.
are they hurting as bad as they say? They've got a business. Leo must never go in there. Maybe he's not welcome.
I doubt it.
Yeah,
Because he also told Bill Murray to go to the Gutman's coffee shop.
Oh,
Right?
probably thinking he'll annoy them or something. Maybe.
Oh, interesting. I never actually thought of that. Maybe
Yeah,
that's
true.
Yeah,
It's kind of like serve returned a little bit.
exactly. Yeah,
You
it's-
send him to our coffee shop, we drop him off at your house.
This is I mean, if anything, Richard Dreyfuss is guilty of just underestimating this guy. It's like he already faked his death. Now he's in your town, and you're like, all right, just give me a few hours. Like, this guy is not gonna give you a few hours.
He should have been the least surprised when he showed up at his house.
Yeah,
Like, Should have just saw that coming a little bit.
I think I mean it hasn't come up yet, but one of it there's certain things in cinema that always it's like a gift that lives in your brain and almost like an ethos and there's the scene where Leo pushes Bob into the water.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like washing up in that like outdoor shower and his wife is like, "You got to apologize to Bob." And he's like, "I'm not going to." And then he's like, "Fine, I'll apologize to Bob." And they lock eyes and Richard Dreyfuss just kind of like doesn't even do anything really, just kind of like nods his head a little bit and Bill Murray goes, "Yep." And it's like that is it perfectly encapsulates what male friendships can be, where you can do something deeply fucked up and you just look at them like, "I'm sorry. All right, we're good." Yeah, that's all. Nothing needs to be said.
And even more so, like the wife's not satisfied.
Yes.
Like, guys can't be friends like that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
really apologize.
You're like, we're able to know, like, that really wasn't about me or whatever. But yeah, I always found that to be a really funny, and it comes up in my head, like, obviously certain times with your friends where you're like, especially having friends who, this was more of like when I lived in Cincinnati, but I lived in a big party house, and all of my friends would get really drunk to a level where it's like they're puking and all that kind of stuff. And at that point, where you're like, I'm still gonna help you, but god damn it, man, you puked on my shoes. And it's like that level of like, I can still hate your guts right now and also know you are my friend.
When I went to college, there was a guy older than me, and in a fraternity, you had to write, like, who's your least favorite person? Like, who do you hate the most in the fraternity? And so I wrote this guy's name, Tyler Benefield, and he like, came up and he's like, "Why the hell did you write? I don't even talk to you. Like, who the hell are you to hate me?" And I was like, "Dude, the first time I ever came to this frat house, you threw up on my bare feet." And he was like, "Was that St. Patrick's Day?" And I was like, "Yes." And he was like, "Dude, I'm so sorry." And after that, I just wrote his name every time they asked that question. It was just like, all right, I get it.
I get it, man.
Throwing up on you is the least cool thing.
It's one of those where you're like, it's like that was the inside of your body. In a way that like pee or shit kind of is too, but not pee you'd understand. You're like, it's a little splash or whatever. Or like
sterile.
You peed we had to share a bed and you peed yourself because you got all drunk. It's like it sucks too, but it's like, all right. But throw up is just like this is like bile and shit. It's like really the inner workings.
I think I see a hot dog.
yeah, exactly. There's a chunks.
When I was I lived in Colorado for a little bit and like just ski instructor, and it was like the beginning of the season. Everyone was going out together and hanging out, and we went out drinking, and then everyone returned, and we went to my place, and people were smoking and stuff. And one guy that didn't do it much, did too much, and then was like, "I need to lay down." I was like, "Okay," and I just set him on my bed. And then like 20 minutes later, I walk in. He's like, "I threw up all over your bed," and it was like all over my blanket. And it was one of those things. I just threw the blanket away.
Oh yeah, there's no recovering.
No. And I was so mad, but the people there didn't understand that he threw up on my bed. So like they were like, "Reed, cool."
yeah, like he's just taking a nap, man. You're like,
fuck this shit. It's cold here.
Oh man, and it's like you have like it's your bed, so you're like that's
yeah. You
that's
can't,
like where
you
all
can't
my
ever
good memories
sit there
are.
Comfortably,
You're like, yeah, exactly. You're like, I gotta burn this mattress.
Luckily, he did. Like I guilted him so much, he gave me like a really nice blanket, so that was nice.
Yeah, that was nice of him.
Yeah.
Not most people will do that,
A good guilt trip for a blanket.
Yeah, exactly. Or just like at that age to be like, all right, I'll try to replace what
I was
can.
really upset.
Yeah. I think it speaks more to Reed's reaction than this guy's kind heart.
Okay, he's like, all right, you're really like, what's in your wallet right now? Let me get
Every
it.
time
Let me
he
get
sees
it.
him, he's like, you need like anything for your stomach, bro?
Yeah,
You need some Tums, dude?
Another classic take a vacation from your problems is I mean, the writing in this movie, it's very memorable.
Yeah, I think it's a great script.
Great script.
Yeah.
The screenwriters, do they have anything else? I didn't
I'm not sure. All I did hear that the original script was like darker. Like where Bill Murray, it was more questionable if he was manipulating the family. Like I think his thing was like almost doing what he
Like
does, but
maniacal.
intentionally.
Yeah, yeah.
Where they kind of in the movie they played up more like he's
He's
aloof.
just a goof. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
There was a lot of people that had influence over the script. It's almost like a too many cooks in the kitchen type thing. It seemed like because Frank Oz, who directed it, said that there was just so much animosity with so many people trying to change. He said he was being interviewed, and he just said it felt like so many people had ideas for how to make the movie better, which is great, but also like everyone was kind of upset. But retroactively, Richard Dreyfuss and Bill Murray have said that this is their favorite movie that they've ever been a part of.
wow.
Wow.
Yeah. And Richard Dreyfuss is even like, look, I don't like Bill Murray, but I'll take my hat off to him. Like, he still makes me laugh, like, despite
Okay,
everything.
wow.
That's surprising because they've both done some great movies. I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
Jaws.
Jaws. It's incredible when you watch that and you're like, oh, Richard Dreyfuss really has had a pretty interesting career where, like, especially in Jaws, where you're like, in my head, he's always been old. So when you watch Jaws, you're like, oh, he's like the young college kid.
Yeah, yeah.
He's kind of like the fuck up.
He's
He's
the
kind of like the
attitude.
guy who's like, let's get drunk a little bit. And then him and oh god, what is the captain's name in Jaws?
Oh, Quint.
Quint. Yeah, him and Quint, like, you're like, oh, they hate each other so much that's the scene where they're comparing scars. You're like, oh, they're so close that
Let's
now
go
they've
rip
realized
my heart out. That's
yeah,
Nancy or whatever they say.
Yeah,
It's a great scene.
He's like, that's not a scar. This is a scar. And you're like, great. That's one of the best movie scenes of all time, I would
Mhm.
say.
No, that's an incredible movie.
Hey, see that?
You're wearing a sweater.
Right there. Mary Ellen Moffat. She broke my heart.
Next thing we got you.
Oh, nice. I've heard about these. I've never actually smelled one of these.
Yeah, I was hoping it smelled more like just straight tennis balls.
Oh, it's in there a little bit.
It's in there. But I don't even play tennis much, but that new tennis ball, opening them up, that I always love that.
Oh,
smell.
yeah. Hell yeah.
I never knew why they did that either.
What?
Like, vacuum sealed the tennis balls. Like, it was always like, why is this like opening a can of soup? Like, I don't.
because they got to pressurize the balls.
That makes sense.
Because if they're coming from whatever country they're coming from, and then
Yeah.
they send them to whatever, then they could be dead. Would be my understanding.
That makes sense.
You know, there's like a whole controversy going on with tennis balls
Wait,
in
what?
professional tennis. Well, because now every tournament kind of operates, under the umbrella of the ATP, which is the men's side, or the WTA, which is the women's. It's funny, you pause it, you're like, we don't need this. No, I get it. It just looked funny. We're
Women's
like,
tennis,
well,
get out of
this isn't going to make
We're
fun.
gonna cut this.
We'll
We're
cut
gonna
that, yeah.
immediately. But they all like the way that a lot of these tournaments make money is through sponsorships, and sometimes it'll be like ball companies. So each tournament sometimes will have a different ball they're using,
Okay.
and for the players, there are some balls where it's like almost universally hated, where it's like every player's like, these are too heavy, they're like fucking up my shoulder, because like
That's
these are
nuts.
people who are like,
They
it's
know the
kind of like the
difference.
Tom Brady
Mhm.
whatever.
The
spy
deflate
gauge,
gate,
where
deflate
it's like
gate.
these minimal amounts where most people would never be able to tell the difference, but for these guys or for these
Mhm.
athletes, it means such a big difference on their bodies. So, anyway, what a long, uninteresting.
no,
I'm
I
a
thought
little
it was
disappointed.
interesting.
I hadn't seen this, and I saw a ball boy, and you handed it to him with that on the side.
Got Kramer's
I thought
name
it
on
was
it?
Kramer on the side. I was like, oh my god, that's so
That would have been
cool.
incredible.
What
Yeah.
also says 1992 commemorative edition. So is this from 1992?
I think it's just an anniversary.
Oh yeah, it does have a 2022 on the back. You could have got me though. You could have been like, nope. Wonderful. Hell
We got
yeah.
it. Yeah, we only got you things from about the same time What About Bob came out.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, how long you've been playing tennis? Like most of your life? How long has that been?
No,
going on?
I started kind of like at the end of college.
Oh,
Yeah, for high school sports, I didn't really get tall until maybe the end of high school,
me too.
early college. So even though I wanted to play football and probably basketball and baseball, I was like 5'0". I was really scrawny. So I was just kind of like, I don't want to like fight. You know, where you're like, you've seen kids do it where it's like, that's not going to stop me, but you got to take all the abuse that probably comes with that, especially for football. You're like, just gonna get fucking knocked around by the biggest kids in the school
And never play.
So I was like, no. So I played indoor volleyball.
That's a safe sport.
Yeah. I was like, all right, there's some jumping.
Were your
I get to
knees
fucking-
okay?
Yeah. I was like, oh, my knees are coach. And bowling.
Bowling.
We got bowling senior year, and I was like, wait a minute.
I can be the bowling guy.
Wait a minute. You're telling me we're going to miss school sometimes because we got to go to a fucking bowling alley? Yes. Because we could get food. We could get drinks. We could. Then you're like, this is, we got to meet. No, I'm going to miss the test. I got to go
hit the
bowl. I
arcade.
got to go smoke cigs.
Yeah.
Because
I
that's the
forgot-
thing. There's
dude.
like high school kids, and then there's people who are at a
Grown-ups.
bowling alley at like noon. So it was always that was like one of the cooler things where I was like, I'm glad I did that.
When they made our hometown had a bowling alley, and they like finally after years and years they were like, all right, it's a smoke-free establishment. People lost their minds. They're like, I've been smoking there for 40 years. They were so mad.
My tobacco-stained fingers have touched every one of these balls. Bowling used to be way more like there was always bowling scenes in movies
All the time.
I mean, in the 90s, right?
Kingpin.
You have Kingpin. You have Big Lebowski.
Yep.
You have there
That's
was
two. That's
there
a
was
good-
hey, there's a bowling scene in Groundhog Day.
yeah,
now
you're
I'm just
right.
reaching.
That's one of the best scenes. Though.
So last year,
Wait, is it really?
whenever he's at the bowling alley,
yeah,
the
and he's
guy's
talking
like,
to those.
"What would you do if everything you did
Oh,
didn't matter?"
Yeah,
that is true.
another great scene, right? Where he's like, "Nothing you did ever mattered. No one ever cared." He goes, "Well, that about sums it up for me."
What would you do if you were stuck in one place and every day was exactly the same and nothing that you did mattered?
That about sums it up for me.
I meant to ask you. I read an interview where you said you kind of want to be a bridge between comedy and tennis.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Is there any tennis comedy related projects or anything you've been working on?
Oh God, no. I mean, it's more of like, how do I get into a tennis space,
Mm-hmm.
and do comedy? Like, not so much like, I mean, it would be fun to like write a movie or something, but more of like, oh, how could I be like a commentator or do like kind of what Kenny Mayne used to do for SportsCenter or something for tennis, because tennis really is, it's very like, it doesn't really have a sense of humor about itself as much as a lot of other sports seem to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or they're not like great social media wise. Like their stuff is really well produced and it looks great, but it's like we're going to ask every player what their favorite Disney character is. And you're like, what the fuck is this? Like the people who watch tennis aren't tweens. Why are we asking them tween questions? These are like adult people who have like taste
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, can understand sarcasm or whatever. So that's, I did a show, and this will wrap in puking on people too. I did a house show in Providence, Rhode Island, and halfway through my set, I knew that I had food poisoning. You know, where like your brain
You
just
start,
gets that information.
sweating.
You're like hot and cold,
Mhm.
like back and forth. You know, where you're like, it is burning up, but people are like, ooh, it's cold, and then you're like, it is freezing. So I told that and you feel it, something drop kind of in your stomach, and I was like, hey, just letting you guys know, I just got let in on this information. I have food poisoning, and they were like, okay. And I was like, I'm gonna go as long as I can, but I might need to stop. And people were kind of like, okay, like, you know, like they couldn't tell if this was a bit because nothing ever prepares anyone to be like, I'm sick right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I made it maybe another 5 minutes, and I'm in their backyard, and they're like, you can, you know, like the whatever, but the bathroom was like through the house upstairs. I'm like, I'm not. So as soon as I was like, I'm gonna go until I can't, because you know you have a little bit of stage sobriety.
You're a professional.
Well, it's like when you're up there, you're thinking about your joke. You're thinking a couple minutes ahead, like, should I change this? Whatever, blah blah
This is
blah.
like Jordan's
I'm
flu
reacting.
game.
Yeah, you're like, if I can keep myself occupied, maybe I can just stop this from happening. Like the bill will come due.
Yeah.
But maybe I could, you know, sometimes if you have a headache, you won't feel it when you're on stage, and then it comes back because you're just kind of like dealing with other stuff. So I just was kind of pushing through, and then I had to run because I didn't want to puke in front of them either. That's, you know what I mean? It's hard to come back from be like, "Whoa, dating's kind of tough." The puke coming out of my mouth. So I puked in their side yard. I made it to like basically like the yard in between there and the neighbors, and made it to somewhat, and then eventually made it to the street. I was like, I'll make it the city's problem. Then I came back, and they were like, "Are you okay?" They got me some water. Long story short, it happens like 3 more times.
Oof.
And one couple.
Did you make it to the street every time?
Well, one time I made it to the side yard. Again, one time I made it to the bathroom. But what was great was it was this couple, and the boyfriend was a Brazilian dude, and no problem. He was not squeamish about it. He kept coming up to me when I was puking, and he would just hand me paper towels to clean myself up. He's standing there barefoot.
Oh, what a nice guy.
He's standing there barefoot. I mean, away from me, but he's just like doesn't have any problem.
That's
like
more
when
unhinged.
and then there was a couple. It's so funny because I got all these people responding to me from that show afterwards. And one guy was like, "Dude, it was fucking hilarious, but my girlfriend has a phobia about people puking, so we had to leave." And I definitely knew who that woman was because every time I'd be like, "Oop," she'd be like, "No, no." Like she's like, "I can't be around this." But anyway, I did that. I eventually do the show. I finish the show. I like immediately drive back to my hotel and just like I'm gonna go to sleep and just ride this out. The next day I woke up feeling fine. It was like got it all banged out. That was the other thing the Brazilian guy gave me. He was like, "Oh, this is like a Brazilian like a remedy," and he just gave me like a glass of lime juice and baking soda. And he was like, just fucking shoot it down. He was like, "It'll clear you out. It'll clear you out." Food poisoning can be like a 24-hour thing. He goes,
yeah.
You do this, it'll suck for 2 hours, but then you're done. So I did that. It totally worked. I woke up the next day feeling great. And then the woman who hosted me was like, "How are you feeling?" I was like, "Feel fine." She was like, "Hey, like the head of marketing for the Tennis Hall of Fame, which is in Newport, Rhode Island, she was at the show last night. She like, let me know if you want me to like see if she could get you to play there." And so, yeah, I contacted her and I got to play there. And it's like, sometimes like things like that, I'm like, maybe that's what it's going to have to be. Like some point at a show, someone who works for the Tennis Channel or works for some kind of, like all these tournaments are kind of independent. So you could try to go to these tournaments and be like, "Hey, let me interview players." I feel like interviewing players would be very fun because it's like, I'm not going to ask you.
That'd be great.
Dumb questions or ask you questions that are clearly for a specific purpose, like, "Well, what are your goals this season in terms of blah blah blah?" But like, let's talk as human beings.
So what's your favorite Disney character?
Yeah, I just ask the same things. I'm like, but let me pay me to do it. But yeah, I feel like there's bridges there. It feels like all of sports is trying to kind of be, they're trying to integrate themselves into like what media is now.
Yeah.
And throughout.
You see the NFL on like Nickelodeon.
Exactly.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Playing in Andy's room. And you're just like, what the hell?
Yeah,
going on?
it's really strange, but it's like, all right, well, there's opportunity in that, I guess. And if I could be that for tennis, then hell yeah. Here's the scene. Head tilt. Yep, we're good. Now I'd like him to go. Oh,
but
man.
yeah, he does bring up good points though, where it's like a little late, but it's like he could be a murderer.
Yeah,
he could
absolutely.
Be, we don't
He
know
faked
this
his
guy.
death.
Yeah.
Like the wife is not taking that into account.
And I think there is like patient doctor. I don't know. Like I don't think it's good for patients to know your whole family.
No. I mean, that's what they talk about transference, right? That's like in The Sopranos too, where it's like people fall in love with their therapist because it's like, oh, this is the person that I tell the darkest, deepest secrets.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's going to be some kind of attachment.
But she
involved.
was also Lorraine Bronco or whatever. She was.
Yeah,
she was
that's true.
Unfair therapist.
I love when Tony's like talking about why he likes her. Like he's like, you don't show yourself. You dress down, but you got a banging body under there.
You play it down. Now, it's obvious you got a killer body under there. And don't get me wrong.
All right.
Not only do you play it down, but you're gentle.
Another classic scene.
Oh gosh.
Is this corn hand shucked?
The amount, which is like such a. Is that even a real question to ask? I don't know. Because as a kid, you're like, is there a difference? Does corn taste different if someone pulled it apart themselves?
Faye, this is so scrumptious. Is this hand shucked?
Would you like some more chicken, Bob?
And I relate to Richard Dreyfuss here too, because it's just like, it is like, dude, stop having an orgasm over the corn, man.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
cool it.
When he's like keeps putting the food to his mouth and he keeps pulling it back because it's like, oh, he ruined it.
Yeah.
He ruined it. And it always makes me think of like when I'm a guest
At someone's
at
house.
someone's house and I'm like, ooh, what if I won't like do it verbatim, but you kind of like go over the top like, oh, these fucking green beans. And they're like, people are like, what?
I love when she offers him salad. He's like, yeah, I will have some more.
Yeah.
Stack it up there.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, could you take the tomatoes off? He's got, right here, pile it high and deep.
Pile it high and deep. That's, I want to, if anybody offers me food in the future, that's how I want to respond. Pile it high and deep.
You want some more salad, Bob?
Yeah, I think I do. Pile it high and deep, will you please?
Because you can't be annoying and needy. Like, there's a neediness and annoying, but it's like that whole little line of like, could you get the tomato off there? He's still like, that's where you're like, God, he kind of knows that he's being
an asshole.
Yeah. The friendship between Bob and the kid is pretty great, though.
It is.
Like, the scene of them jumping around in bed and just naming, like, turkey tits or whatever. Just, what is that?
Tourette's.
Yeah, yeah. It's great. Where you're like, oh, as a kid, I had a lot of, like, parents' friends that were not like that, obviously, to that degree, but where you're like, oh, my parents clearly must be kind of cool because their friends are kind of weird.
Yeah.
You know, like your dad's weird friends where it's like, they'll give you a little something on the side or they'll let you sip their beer or whatever they're going to do. I don't know. As a kid, I always liked that. Being like, oh, wait a minute. But he's also a dad. This guy seems to be like way more loose about this whole situation.
Yeah.
But it's because you're not their kid.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. No, one of our closest friends, David Moss, his son's my age, and like I always thought his dad was hilarious, and I always thought my dad wasn't as funny, like just growing up, you know, and I didn't think he was as funny, and I thought I was funny, so I was like, man, me and this guy, like, we're riffing, this is great.
We gotta hang out more often, dude. Like without your son gonna suck.
Let's have a spend the night party. Like,
Yeah. No,
I do think it's weird. Like he is so untrusting of Bob, but then he's just like, all right, you're gonna sleep in my little boy's room.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if nothing else, he's like, well, he's not dangerous seemingly in that way.
And then, like, the next thing you hear is them cussing loudly.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
like,
They've turned the bed against the door so they can't open it all the way.
That's a little creepy. I laugh so hard when he goes, Bob gave me something to be afraid of more than death. And the mom's just like, that's nice, sweetie.
Yeah.
Well, even when he asked Bob, like, Bob, are you afraid of death?
Yeah. Oh, dude, he goes really dark there.
Yeah.
That kid, like,
Charlie Korsmo.
What's up with this all black obsession? It's like, I'm mourning my childhood dad.
Yeah.
He's that kid in Hook, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Robin Williams was going to do this movie.
Who was he gonna be?
He was going to be
Bill
Bob.
Murray, yeah.
But he had just done The Fisher King and was still wrapping up.
Oh,
and
that would have been a weird. Like, how dark would his Bob would have been?
Yeah.
It would have been like a little. It's because Robin Williams is very. You could see that. Yeah, he could get on people's nerves for sure. He could be very like, just shut the fuck, like ADHD brain kind of. But yeah, there's a little bit of like, he's so innocent.
I just love how wholesome this.
Yeah,
part
yeah.
is. They're singing.
It's
singing in the
also
rain.
no one's. God, when I was a kid, I was like, oh, we can like throw the dishes, like that's fun. And then my mom's like, no, we're not doing that. I'm not gonna catch these.
We never clean up the kitchen in a fun way.
We do not sing musicals in this household.
Next thing we got you.
Oh my God, what is this? Oh shit! Oh my God, that's hilarious. That's amazing. We gotta let that.
Yeah, let
be
that
out
simmer.
hilarious.
Trying to get this made was equally funny.
Would no company
people
be
being
like,
what the hell?
yeah,
So
ship it to Alabama. We mean right by this.
I sent it to Custom Ink to get them to do it, and they responded, and they were like, first of all, Breaking Bad logo's patented. Also, it's kind of in poor taste to have Malcolm X on there, don't you think? And I was just like, I'm not responding to y'all anymore.
Yeah. You're like, what am I going to send you the bit?
Yeah.
Just listen to this. It'll make sense.
You'll get it.
I also enjoy prestige television. I'm a big fan of the show Breaking Bad. And a couple years back, I bought this T-shirt of Walter White, who's the main character of Breaking Bad. If you're not familiar with Walter White, he's bald, has a goatee, wears glasses, and a lot of collared shirts. And it's just a T-shirt with him kind of like from his waist up. And it was my favorite shirt, and I would wear this shirt all the time. But it started to fade with all the washing and dryings, and it started to look like a Malcolm X T-shirt. But I didn't realize what was going on for like way too long. So I would wear this shirt out in public and have the weirdest interactions with people because they would come up wanting to talk about the civil rights leader, and I thought they were talking about a meth dealer. So a woman came up to me and she goes, "Wow, he died way too soon." And I go, "What did you think was going to happen?" You can't go around saying and doing those things and expect to keep on living. And frankly, man, if he didn't die when he did, I would have been a little upset. And she is absolutely horrified, and she's going, "No, Malcolm, Malcolm." And I'm like, "That's his other show, idiot."
Oh man.
No, I found a lady locally that did it, but she was
I would,
also
yeah.
like,
I don't know if I have the confidence to wear that out in public because I would assume a lot of people would be like, "What the fuck do you mean by that?" Then it's like, "Oh, I know I'm a comedian." They're like, "Yeah, I'm sure you are." That'll be like hidden. I gotta put that in a vault somewhere.
Great, you gave me something I gotta hide.
Yeah, exactly. Oh God. Someone TSA is gonna go through my shit like, nah, he can't fly. I don't know what this guy's up to. He's gonna fly the plane into the black Muslim church. Black Israelites? Black Muslims. What was like Elijah Muhammad?
You know this,
know?
right, Nick?
Yeah, this is right up my
Yeah,
alley.
I figured what about Bob?
Yeah, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is more my speed lane.
Yeah. Anyway.
The last thing we got you, since you're gonna have some issues with that.
Oh
Baby
shit!
steps.
Oh my
So
God!
this is just an actual notebook that you could write jokes.
Oh,
and bits in.
dude!
Or like erotic
Where
novels.
did you get this?
I found it online, but I actually found it before you picked this movie. Because I
Really?
saw that you had said that What About Bob was one of your favorites, and I didn't know if you were going to pick it, but I was like, it'll surprise me either way. But then when you picked it, I was like, yeah,
Oh my God,
perfect.
dude, this is great. I'm in love with this. Yeah, because I do all my sets on here, so this is like a perfect joke book. Oh man. All right. At first I kind of thought did they write the first chapter of the book? You know,
yeah, that would have been
it's some kind of well, we needed it for footage. So.
yeah. So we have the actual book. That would have been cool.
Also, do you think Baby Steps? Do you think it would work?
I think it's the dumbest name ever.
Right.
For him to be so proud of it. It's such a stupid name.
But as a psychology, do you think people would be if it was a real thing, no, I've just been doing baby steps and it helps?
I could see it. I mean,
'Cause
it has a little thing, a
Yeah,
little hook. You know?
the small accomplishable goals. You see that a lot in
Well,
other.
Jordan Peterson is just make up your bed. You know, that's his
Oh,
whole
okay.
thing. If you don't do anything the whole day, at least you made your bed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of baby steps.
That is a little bit baby stepping. Yeah, no, there's definitely parts of it that you're it would be funny if they dived a little bit more into the psychology, what is more of the baby steps protocol. But it was one of those things where sometimes movies where it's clearly this is not the plot of the movie isn't the baby steps or his success, but it has to be believable enough to where you're not like, why would they really? This was like a bestseller, but Baby Steps kind of felt like, oh yeah, that would be. I could see that book being like, no, have you read Baby? Like everyone talking about it the way they did like the Da Vinci Code or something.
But
Surrounded by mystery.
Because I feel like there's worse self-help book titles out there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I imagine a lot of 70s ones were probably pretty bad.
It just, that whole book cracks me up. They had like, when he walks to the bookshelf and he's like, let's see, I can't help you. And then he like, oh, here it is.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
a whole row of them.
It's like multiple shelves of like, there's a book that just hit the market.
And then he's on his tape recorder. He's like, and bill him $29.95 for that.
That's expensive. 1992? $30 for a book?
That's like a $100 book nowadays.
That is expensive.
There better be some good stuff in there.
Well, also, I
Probably
never
how
made
he was able to afford such a nice lake house.
Exactly. Yeah, you gotta. Hey, man, he's like, we gotta move our barrel. It doesn't cost baby steps. That's what you have to do. But you're gonna give me big money, adult money. That's what I want. I never made the connection either between Body Snatchers, or at least the 70 version, and this. But it's like they both include psychology.
Oh yeah.
Because Leonard Nimoy is a psychologist.
Yeah.
And his is very much like he's proponing this whole like
everyone's changing.
Everyone's changing. It's just because everyone's dissatisfied with their lives.
And I think I love that part of the movie too.
Yeah, because it does feel real. Where it's like, because in that moment you know that he's still human, because he like, right, that happens. They have that like book signing that goes kind of awry. Then they go across the street. He's talking to the woman, and he like pushes her up against the glass, and he was like, "How did you feel?"
Showing emotion
He's showing emotion. So you know that like, oh, okay, he still must be there. I think when he comes back to the bathhouse is when he's changed.
Okay, I didn't know. See, I just watched it once, but I almost assumed he was always an alien. But that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because he's like, "How were you? Were you frightened? Were you blah blah?" And you're like, "Oh, he's emitting omitting or emitting emotions that he doesn't have later on." But also, it's like, I feel like that's the period of time when that stuff was like, they call that like the me generation, was those people in the 70s being like, oh, like, what is my happiness? What am I searching for? What are my goals? Instead of being like, oh, I'm married and this is what it is. And I wonder if some of this movie was, or like when they were writing the script, if they were like, part of the plot point was like, oh, a lot more people are seeing psychologists now, so this is like a reasonable plot. And I'm sure, especially because screenwriters, they live in LA or New York, so it's like they're probably going to a therapist.
Oh yeah.
And then you're kind of being like, oh, do I feel like
there's something
I
here.
wish I could call them all the time, I wish I could just bug them, but I never. Like, you could see how the genesis of that idea maybe started.
Well, it felt like in the 90s too, and maybe 80s as well, there was like kind of stalker comedies a little bit, like The Cable Guy.
Right.
Yeah.
And like maybe even a little bit Planes, Trains, Automobiles. Just where it's almost like I'm with a guy that I can't, that I don't want to be around.
I can't shake. Yeah. There was another one in there. What was the Fairley Brothers one with There's Something About Mary, where Chris Elliott is the secret stalker.
Good point. Yeah.
Woogie.
Yeah.
Which that is such a, I mean, God, that movie is also a really weird rewatch.
So my dad had heard it was a great movie. So I was in 6th grade and Reed was in like 1st grade. And he goes like, took our whole family to see Something About Mary. And oh, dude.
Oh, man.
So right off the bat, he's like, trying, he like zips himself up.
Oh,
in the
yeah.
zipper.
Oh, and you see it.
Oh, yeah. There's all sorts of stuff. Well, my mom, like, very conservative, is like, we're leaving. So, like, we have to get up and leave the theater. Well, 2 of my buddies, are in the back of the theater. They see us leaving. They're just, like, laughing at me. And I just, like, that Monday at school, they're like, the rest of the movie's so good.
Oh.
Like, oh, it's so lame that you got to leave. Well, I just always was like, man, that sucks. So, but I knew, I was like, in a couple years when this comes out, I'm going to watch it again. But Reed, you got to tell your perspective of it.
Well, growing up, I didn't know if that was a movie or a memory, because it was we only saw like 5 minutes of it. And it was just like, I just lived with that fear. And I was like, is that
yeah.
a dream? Like, why do I have a memory of
You're
like 5
"Let's
minutes
really
of a
make
movie?
sure the zipper's far away.
Yeah. No, I've been living with that over my head for a while. But then when I saw something about Mary in like college, it was like, oh my God, I didn't make that up.
Yeah. It was a little bit of like the end of the Body Snatchers for me, where it was like, oh, that's where it came from. Yeah.
I would make that face if I zipped it
Yeah.
up.
Oh man, might as well. Yeah, let me get a new body. I fucked this one up. But I remember seeing the Body Snatchers thing from. Do you remember when places like production places like MGM or Paramount? This was VHS days, where sometimes it wouldn't just be previews for other movies and then the movie starts. It would be like a promo video for their entire collection, like Paramount.
Oh yeah.
And it would be it would be like a song playing, usually like a 60s song or whatever, and then it would just be like these different moments from movies cut together to seem like they're talking to each other. And I always remember the Body Snatcher one being in that or something where it's like, we're for a low price of whatever, and then it's like
I watched a documentary not long ago that just was every decade talking about movies and films, and it had that in there, and they're just talking about how it was a great movie, and that ending scene, one of the best ending scenes, and show that. So like, whenever we saw you liked it, it was like, I was like, all right, I need to watch this. I know it's a great movie, but I was like, oh, I already know.
You
how
already
it
know
ends,
he turns,
but it was still so suspenseful.
Right.
Like, I got right into it, and even now I saw people online kind of debating whether or not he was faking or not. I think I don't know.
Yeah, why would he fake?
I think it's a little far-fetched.
Yeah, because she's so emotional, so he knows that she's not.
And that screech is not very human.
No, not at all.
He like nailed it.
Yeah.
If he was faking, he crushed
And at
it.
that point, like, even if they both had made it out, it's like, now you're just living in this prison where you have to pretend because it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great fucking movie. The sense of like, what do you call that? You know, where you feel really boxed in, closed in. Claustrophobic. That movie felt really claustrophobic as it went on, because it was like, it's San Francisco, it's these wide places, they're walking outside, whatever, and just the way that it would be shot, where it's them walking normal pace, and then you just start seeing the legs that are like that passed them before are now coming back. It was just like, oh man, this movie on so many levels, where you're like, it's really impressive that this was a 70s movie.
Oh, for sure. And like for me, it reminded me a little bit of a zombie movie with just the hordes coming at you, but it was such a unique twist on it. It was like, oh, this is, I don't know. It was just
like
so
some of them
unique.
are involved. Like, how are they all communicating?
Yeah, is that a hive mind?
Yeah,
type
is it a
of
hive
thing?
mind? But then you also see that some of them don't, like, they're doing, oh, I have to complete this mission. So you see it in like street scenes where it's like, when they get found out, not everyone turns to run. It's like 70%. So what are the other 30? Like, are they getting information like, no, continue with your tasks, or, you know, you got to do this, or, you know, because you got to build all these, whatever their plan was, which was, I guess, just like everyone becomes pod people and then eat up the world and then leave, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, we just keep doing this, so this is just now what we're gonna do.
Yeah, now they just landed on the best planet for them. It's like, oh, we'll take over these humans. This is awesome.
Exactly.
If the dog scene though,
where
that
it's
was,
wearing
like,
the mask.
terrifying.
Yeah. Well, because they keep establishing that guy and that dog several times, so you know, like, this has to come back around. Like, if nothing else, for just like, you know, they show him like at the beginning, like every time they go to where they work. I forget what that is, like the EPA or something, or the
health
department. Yeah. So it's like they established that guy playing music out there like 3 times or something. And then, you like, at the end of it, you're like, well, I guess that's not going to pay off. And then the dog shows up and you're like, whoa. And then you wonder, like, so did the dog eat him? Or is he like in the middle of transformation?
They're like sleeping. Yeah, when a pod was nearby. So I guess
they like fucked him up.
I think melted him.
If you had to be potted with an animal, what animal would you want to be?
That's a good question. Fuck. I mean, I guess you'd want to like a cheetah or something, like a big cat.
Yeah, that's good.
Right? Because
Yeah,
you're like,
lion.
all right, you got like, if you're kind of there for it, then you're like, well, this is gonna be action. You know, a lot of animals are like,
I can run 65 miles
if it's
an hour,
a turtle,
baby.
you're like, all right, we're gonna eat lettuce again. Fuck,
This sucks.
I'm a human head on a tortoise. So yeah,
That'd be way less scary in the movie.
absolutely, yeah. You're like, oh, we can get away quite quickly from you.
I'm just gonna turn you on your back.
Right.
This scene's incredible.
Oh yeah,
it's
the horse sense.
Him like being like, false alarm.
Yeah.
That was a bit like you at that house
Yeah,
party.
yeah. Just we're fine. Well, it's also funny because not that I've been in any kind of like live TV situation, but you do now that I've been a little bit in the entertainment industry, you also get the sense that like there's nothing worse than you're like, this is his big moment and he's kind of like fucking it up before
Yeah,
Bob
yeah.
comes in. He like, well, Maria,
Just
it's like
runs
too
through it so
rehearsed.
fast, yeah.
It's too like he's not in the moment, he's not having a good time. And then Bob coming in and just crushing it.
He's bombing.
And you see that a lot where it's like sometimes the most psychotic people on stage do really well because you're like, I guess maybe that's how they live. That's how they operate all the time. Is they just don't worry about
Anything.
what I'm gonna say, what this is about. But yeah, he crushes it in this.
Even how he like takes his seat is so funny.
Yes.
Like sit down. Like he just is honestly he's so great in this scene.
I wonder. I mean, maybe if Bob wasn't there, the interview would have went fine. But like, you know, it's like he saves him a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, you get the sense that like I wonder, it never says like what did the sales go, like how much did Bob make for him on that?
That's what I thought, because I was like, I felt like the interview overall was fine. Maybe he comes off like a douche a little bit, but like everyone else loves it but him.
And I mean, if this was in the age of the internet, that'd probably be a meme or something. If they, you know what I mean? Like if an interview got where you're like, damn, this guy just took over. Made the guy sit in the other seat.
I like the ending, but I wish they would have like tied it back up with, instead of just doing the text where it kind of just says Bob's now has a best-selling book. Blah,
Right,
blah.
right.
I wish it would have shown just fade to black and then Bob getting interviewed for his book.
Oh,
kinda
yeah,
kind of
like
like this right here.
Right. Because it was also like they were suing each other. Wasn't that
Yeah,
also part of the
yeah.
text? It was like, and they're now suing each
I was like,
other.
man, I kind of want to see that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Where you're like, I mean, it sucks that Richard Dreyfuss is like way too old now for this to make sense. I think Bill Murray could still play Bob.
Oh yeah.
In some kind of, I mean, they're bringing back all these weird, different movies now. That it would be fun if there was like a What About Bob too.
I love that part. Is this some radical?
Yeah,
therapy?
Why'd you need to kick Bob out of the house?
You think he's gone? He's not gone. That's the whole point. He's never gone.
Is this some radical new therapy?
You see?
The scene where he's all tied up with like the termite bomb, and he still is like, "Oh, I get it. I'm all wrapped up inside. If I don't free myself, I'm gonna explode." It's amazing because it's so funny how people will twist. You know, you can twist any kind of what anyone's therapist says to be like, "Oh, that's what it really means something to me." So it is funny that like there's all these. It's not really a point in the script, I think. But you kind of see a little bit of like the wellness culture in Bob. He's just ping-ponging from thing to thing. How many like, oh, take a vacation from yourself. Oh, I treat people like
and
phones
everything he learns
disconnecting.
is like the best thing ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's never like, oh, I'm doing the work. I'm like I'm not a slacker. I'm doing the work. But he's not. But he's not. Yeah, he's not at all.
Yeah.
I'm doing the work. I'm baby stepping. I'm not a slacker.
His baby stepping is like, I'm just going to take over your life.
Yeah, and it's only after a 20-minute meeting too that all this.
He's so golden retriever right here.
Oh yeah.
He like gets in the car, like, where are we going? He's like hanging out the window.
You're
Like the family's like, oh, y'all have fun. Like it's
We're
definitely
taking
like,
you to the farm.
Yeah, it's so that's all I could think about. This is probably my favorite
great
part
car.
of the movie when he goes like when he comes back and Bob's just doing stand up. for the whole.
Oh, yeah.
crowd.
I thought about your backyard like shows that you put
Oh,
on. because
yeah,
it's just like an intimate group, and he's kind of just.
You're the one
connecting
drawing
with
all the
of them.
dirty pictures. It's like it's also what I will say is so many times in movies you'll hear like the start of a joke and then they don't give it to you, and it's always a fun little thing, and then that you're like, oh, that you just got like a free joke. Everyone like got a street joke to tell.
He draws a picture of a tree and says, what do you think of that? What do you think? He said, sex. All right, and he draws a picture of a car, a house, sex, sex, sex. The doctor says, you're obsessed with sex. And the patient says, well, you're the one drawing all the dirty pictures.
It made me think of your lids joke when you were talking about like it being in the lids for so long, picking out hats. And I was like, dude, that's such a Bob thing. Like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
could see Bob struggling to pick between two hats.
Yes, absolutely. And he would become friends with the lid salesman.
For sure.
Yeah.
Bob
he
would
starts
start
working
working at
there. He outsells him. He loses his job. You could have you could have a Leo Marvin-less Bob sequel.
That's true.
It's just whatever the next psychiatrist is.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. But it seems like he's a psychiatrist now, or
Yeah,
something.
well, you could have that.
Maybe that. Yeah.
What if he gets bobbed by one of his patients?
Oh, there you go.
That'd be good.
Who's like, trying to think of like who an actor could even be to like.
How do you outdo Bob?
I know.
Maybe
I know.
Steve Carell. I'd watch that.
Oh yeah, maybe he's kind of done that kind of a character
Yeah.
a few times, right?
Yeah, Dinner for Schmucks feels kind of like that guy.
Very
a little bit.
much. I mean, Michael Scott a little bit is
Yeah, Pam could never
very
shake
needy,
him.
very needy, very like spastic. Needs a lot of affirmation.
Honestly, now all I can think is what about Bob remake, but it's Ryan and Michael.
Oh yeah. It's like they're either gonna get married or they're gonna kill each other.
I didn't know this was a Disney movie.
Yeah, Touchstone, right?
Yeah.
It was like their parent or it was their company to do more like adult fare.
Yeah.
Because there's a few where you're like, one of the jobs I had in LA was at a subtitling company. And when I got there, I joined this like basically what became Disney Plus. But Disney was basically like, we're going to do our own streaming service. We need to go through our vaults and like what subtitling, like what languages do we have for this movie, blah, blah, blah. So we had to go through and there's like a lot. Tombstone is a Touchstone movie.
Oh,
Technically a
yeah,
Disney movie.
that's a great
And you're
movie.
like, they fucking kill people.
Yeah.
There's like whoring and gambling
Oh,
and
yeah.
drugs. And I mean, I guess you watch some of that early Disney stuff and you're like, well, that was in
Yeah,
there
I was
too.
about to say, yeah.
Like Pinocchio, you're like, when he goes to that island of like
Mhm.
misfit toys, you're like, what the fuck?
Dude, Dumbo
This
always messed
is-
me up. When he,
Yeah.
like, trips or whatever, that scene, I was always like, I don't like this.
Yeah, you're like, I think this is like valuable information, but later.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
later.
I'll revisit this later in life. But
Right.
no, there was a lot of Disney movies that were just like, this is scary.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yo, yeah.
There were definitely spooky parts of that movie. Like the doctor who put Sally together.
Yeah.
Like he just looked creepy as fuck.
But all of them looked a little
And
creepy.
also that actor, his voice, he was the guy who was in like Mousetrap. He was
I
in
didn't know that. Which guy? The shorter guy?
National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Remember the guy who catches his hair on fire?
Yeah,
The uncle? That's him. That's that voice.
Huh.
And that voice is like, oh God, it's like, it's great, but it creeps the fuck out of me because it sounds like ancient.
No,
That
I
guy
know
was
what you
probably
mean.
as old as Richard Dreyfuss is now. And even Richard Dreyfuss, for all I said about him looking really old, he looks better than that guy.
Yeah, he looks all right. It's weird how IMDb, or I guess when you Google a movie, it shows their current cast picture.
Right.
I don't like
Yeah.
that because then you're having sometimes you're like, I think it's this person.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Is that the second sailor woman who where you're really going down like, was she in a? I think I recognize her from something else, and you're like, oh, they don't say her name. How am I going to find this person?
So you mentioned subtitles. Did you Did you have to like retype?
I
or, like-
wouldn't type them, but it was more about you'd find out like placement. So if there's text on screen that is like plot pertaining, you have to move it up to the top so people can see.
Well, thank you. We use subtitles a lot, so
Yeah. I mean,
fine job.
I will say there's some that I watch, especially if I'm watching anything British.
Oh, for sure.
You're like, I'm gonna need this, and also sometimes there are definitely movies that I've seen this 100 times. First time watching it with subtitles and you go, oh, that's what they said.
I do.
I don't know what I thought they said, but I just never questioned it. Like, I wonder sometimes how they're gonna subtitle Richard Dreyfuss, where because he goes like, like how do they subtitle that? How do they subtitle? Because you'll see like they won't put words because it's not words, but they'll be like a parentheses like murmuring gibberish or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's up to the subtitler.
Inaudible dialogue.
Yeah,
or something
and
like
sometimes you see people where you're like, did they invent a new word?
Yeah.
Like sting music for horror movies, where it's like like someone did they know that was called a sting, or did someone just be like, that's what it kind of, I don't know, onomatopoeia type of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that because it'll come up like squelching, like sometimes in a horror movie, and you're like, oh yeah, that was a squelch.
Yeah.
That was in Stranger Things. The first time I saw it was it said the upside down was like squelching, and that was when I was like, I never heard that word before, but that's exactly what that noise is.
Yeah. It's better than like gyrating or whatever. Where you're like,
I don't know.
Squelching has a very it's never in a good context.
Whoever wrote that, like, they had to be like, and that's it for
they
today.
should retire on that.
I nailed that.
Yeah, I know it was a word already, but I fucking brought it back.
Yeah.
This classic scene where I love how they make it seem like he jumped from 20 stairs.
Yeah.
That shot of like the overhead where you're like, what? That was such a weird choice.
Michael Jordan in Space Jam.
Yeah, like
Bill Murray.
The little bit of Frank Oz where you're like, he had to do a little bit of some kind of like,
this is my shot. This one's for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's so far. That's so far. That would have broken Bob's vertebrae because he speared him from about 30 feet up.
How do you feel about surprise parties? Have you ever had one before?
No, I haven't. I think this is a very like straight guy thing where it's like, we don't have to do anything for my birthday. But then you're always kind of secretly like, I wish someone would do something though. So you kind of want it both ways. Yeah, where you're like, no, I haven't. I mean, as a kid, I had some really great birthdays, but they weren't surprise. Those were like my parents. I was like telling my parents like, this is what I want. When we lived in Hawaii, my parents got me and all my friends. I mean, I was like 6th grade, 7th grade. They got us a big room at the Hilton, like on the ocean, and it had like, it had water slides at the pool and everything, and it was fucking awesome because we went out. I mean, the pool's closed at whatever 8 p.m., but we're kids, so we took all the conditioner and shampoo from the shower and just fucking greased those things up, and we're going so fast. It was like, it was one of the best birthdays ever. And I totally somewhat I just was like, we want to go to the Hilton. Like, it's crazy to think that I sold that. I'm like, what happened to that me who could sell my parents and like, get me a night at the Hilton? It's like 40 minutes away from where we live. Like, it's totally not, oh, well, you definitely, we can't drive all the way back. We can't just have a party there.
You're just living Home Alone too?
Yeah, exactly. We need a room. Parents can have their own room. I think my stepdad brought me, and him and my little sister just got their own room. So we had like a boys' room, and it was great. It was like, yeah, we can. You guys can rent movies or whatever. We're like, fuck. It's the stuff now that I'm so sick
in a
of.
hotel though, back then it was awesome because movies.
Yes,
it was like
on
now
demand.
it's streaming. Yeah, where
you're like they got kind of new movies. Like, this is not even on VHS. They got Blade, or whatever. It was that sweet spot where you really, I don't know. I mean, I don't have kids. I don't think I'll have kids, but I have a lot of family members who have young kids, cousins that have kids. And you see,
do you sleep in the bedroom with them?
Yeah, exactly. I teach them all about Tourette's.
We're gonna grease up those slides tomorrow.
Wait. Get ready. But I do like being around my nieces and nephews because they do get me back into that mindset, where I'm like, oh yeah, I would. As an adult, it's like I'm sick of hotels. I'm sick of being able to watch whatever movie I want to watch, and that's partly because of like the culture we live in, but also it's just being an adult. Like, when you're a kid, adult stuff sounds so fucking cool. You're like, what? You get to go to different hotels and you're in different cities and you get to eat whatever you want?
I want to pay taxes.
Yeah. I went out to eat with my friend Forrest and his 2 kids, and afterwards, it was like a regular dinner. The next day, he was like, my boys couldn't stop talking about you. They were like 6 and 4, and I was like, oh yeah, and they're like, they saw you get multiple cans of soda for dinner, and it blew their little minds. And so part of me was like, hell yeah, dude, I still got it. Like, there's still a part of you that is like, if kids kind of respect my moves, then I kind of respect my moves,
If an 8-year-old has respect for me, maybe I should.
Yeah, like, I'm living up to my adulthood. Other adults would be like, what? I'm going to have a beer like a regular person, but I'm like, I'm going to get a Big Red. And do you guys have Big Red here?
No.
Like red cream soda?
Oh, I was thinking
the gum.
Code Red, the Mountain Dew.
Oh yeah, I just call it Big Red. They call me Big Red. I'll drink it warm in the morning like coffee.
Speaking of this, we always ask our guests, but do you remember when you found out Santa Claus wasn't real?
I mean, there was definitely a moment where it must have happened, but I don't remember it in terms of it being like a pivotal. I definitely remember there was like years where I'm like, yeah, I know it's my parents now.
Yeah.
But I don't remember who revealed. I think it must have been at school, is my guess, where it's like at a lunch table, all your friends are talking, and one of them says it, and then you all quietly, I remember I probably would have been the kid who's like, I definitely know that. And inside my head, I'm like, everything's melting, but you're trying to keep a cool facade. Like, no, yeah, for sure he's fake. And then in your head, you're like, oh, is everything fake? Is my mom real?
Shonix was our favorite answer. He said that because he came to America, he didn't know about it. So literally, like, it was Christmas time, and there was all these pictures of Santa around this guy's house. And he's like, "So who's that? Your grandpa?"
Guy loves gifts, huh?
So the guy's like, "No, dude, you don't know about Santa." So the guy tells him about Santa, and Shonix like, "That's awesome." And the guy goes, "Oh, he's not real." Shonix like, "What?"
Oh.
So he said, like, he found out about Santa, and then found out Santa wasn't real in like 5 minutes.
Got the
straight.
rug pulled out
Yeah,
right
dude.
under you. Because then you're like, well, now I'm in America. Like, now I'm going to start getting some of this. He's got to write a movie about that first year.
Yeah.
Because his joke about moving here, like, right after 9/11, and it was Halloween.
Yeah.
And he saw a bunch of people dressed up as devils, and his parents were like, damn, they're really taking this pretty hard.
Yeah, his parents were driving, and his mom was like, "Do you think that has anything to do with 9/11?" His dad's like, "Yes."
Yeah, it definitely does.
No, he's hilarious.
Well,
He's
even when he said he
amazing.
came over here, he like saw a parade, and he was just like, "This is America. Every day they have parades. and
Yeah.
candy. Like,
They're
oh
swimming
my
in
money."
Yeah, it's so funny you don't realize like how much of that stuff is cultural.
Yeah.
And just like, it's never weird to us because we came up in it. But for anyone else, they're like, so what? So wait a minute. Everyone believes that this guy is real, but everyone also knows that he's fake.
Yeah.
Like the whole Santa thing would be so weird, I'm sure, to get your head around, where you're like, but then, but I also just can't tell other kids that he's not real, even though you're telling me he's not real.
We're
Crazy.
getting closer to Christmas. You have a favorite Christmas movie you watch around the holidays?
Oh, favorite Christmas movie. I mean, I'm always on the lookout for like what is secretly maybe a Christmas movie. Like the
Gremlins.
Die Hard was always a classic answer for a long time. I mean, sometimes I'll go back to, God, I can't remember the name of the company. It's like the two names, but it's like all the stop animation, like the Frosty the Snowman.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed
Yeah,
Reindeer.
yeah.
I love that one.
Yeah, and that's not like one I'll actually sit down and let me study this.
It's
and
more the
watch
vibes.
It's you put it on the background where like you're around your family, people are making cookies. It's like a background noise that I really enjoy. But like Christmas Vacation is pretty great because it's not, people aren't sick of that. Like Christmas Story, you're like, yeah, it's on TV all the time. Like it's on TV for the last 48 hours.
Well, I think it holds up too because the holidays are just tough for a lot of people,
right?
And even if you're have a great Christmas, a great family, you can still get to the point where all right, we're hanging out a lot right now.
Yeah. Let me just watch
so
this.
That like cynicism in Christmas Vacation is just, I don't know, it just holds up. So
right. Shitter's full. I mean, like there's some classic lines in that the scene that always gets me in that, and it's like so weird because it's not a funny part of that movie, but it's such a weird touch. But it's when he gets locked up in the attic. Clark gets locked up in the attic, and he's trying to scream and whatever, and like he can't figure out the window because it's like one of those oval ones where he keeps hitting himself. And then he just, I guess, they cut back to him later, and now he's like, he's got his grandma's like coat on. He's got like a fur on. He's got one of those like old style like church hats. He's got pearls. And then he's watching like a Super 8 of his childhood Christmas.
Yeah.
And to me, I was like, oh, that is such a beautiful little moment, because that is the time of year where I'm like, oh, if I had like an old home movie of our Christmases, I'd fucking love to watch that right now. Like, nostalgia is kind of built into Christmas.
Yeah.
So that to me was like, there's no reason why that has to be in there. It's almost, I mean, it's obviously played a little bit for laughs for what he's wearing and stuff, but it is also like, I think he's crying in that scene or something. Like, it's very sweet.
Yeah, well, like I imagine, like you're saying, he just wants to be close to his old family.
Yeah,
He's thinking
yeah.
how Christmas was.
Right. And then you see, like, the old family shows up. He doesn't give a fuck about them. So it's like the dichotomy of, like, I love my family. And then when you're around them, you're like, oh, these motherfuckers again. Like, they're almost better in theory sometimes. But yeah, it was like the grandma who brought the cat in the box. Remember that? She's like, I brought you a gift. And he does that thing of, like, the box is moving. Another great physical comedy moment. But yeah, that old guy, he had that huge cigar, and then he like lights his toupee on fire. I don't know that actor's name. He must have been on a bunch of stuff, but his voice is one of the most I think like him and Vincent Price always kind of, they get you into that. When I hear it, I'm like, oh, I'm in a horror movie. Or I'm
Who's Vincent Price?
Vincent Price. Do you ever hear Thriller, the song Michael Jackson, and at the end?
Michael Jackson. No.
Yeah, you're like, no.
Yeah.
But like the monologue at the end.
Speaking of grown men sleeping in children's bedrooms.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so Vincent Price did a lot of, I guess some of it was more campy horror, but he did like House of Wax. He did all these movies. No, so that was a remake of the 60s.
Okay.
And that was like a 3D movie. He's done a lot of like, he's just like a classic horror movie guy, but he's also in Edward Scissorhands.
Oh, cool.
He's the guy, he's the old guy who creates
Is horror
him.
your genre that you like the most?
You
seem to know a lot about it.
Well, yeah, it's one that I find that I really end up respecting a lot, because it's kind of thrown away as a genre, but it's also where a lot of great directors kind of start, because it's kind of like you can make them like more of the low budget ones can really break big, where that doesn't really happen in other movies. You don't see like, oh, that was a really low budget romantic comedy that really blew up. And also, I think horror has more of an ability to be like of its time, or at least representative of things that are, because it can be social in a way. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, like we were just talking about, the whole psychology of like the me generation, where it's like, okay, what do I want in my life? So people are changing, people are different. Relationship, you hear about it a lot now, where it's like people with their parents, they can now look back and be like, actually, my parent kind of was fucked up, and I might not, this dynamic of this relationship has to change. And to those parents, they would think, you're like a whole new person. It's like, I don't even recognize this person. So it's like all that kind of stuff bakes into horror movies in a way that you don't really see in another, like comedies, when they try to be too present, or like they'll date themselves really badly. But horror kind of ages a lot better, I would say, than a lot of other movies. Like we were talking about It Follows, where you're like, oh, well, what a crazy allegory for like unprotected sex and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's literally an STD that is coming to kill you. It's cool. That's cool as shit. It worked,
Any recent horror movies that you've seen that you liked a lot?
I watched, so after Invasion of the Body Snatchers, I watched The Changeling.
I haven't seen that one yet.
So, well, there was the Changeling, and there's Changeling. One of them was a Clint Eastwood movie from not that long ago. It wasn't that one. This one was, I think, 1980, and it's oh God, who's that actor who played Patton? George C. Scott. He basically his wife and his kid die in a tragic accident. They live in New York, so he's like he's like a composer, classical composer. So he buys this house in Seattle, and it's this gorgeous, huge old mansion, and he's like, I'm just gonna hole up here, and basically like compose my next symphony, and then the house is haunted.
Okay, I've seen the cover
house,
of that.
Yeah, the house has a presence, and it is really fucking cool because one, it doesn't go to the places where you'd think it's gonna go, and it also, you ever see like a movie that people talk about a lot, or you see a lot of like cliches in film, and you're like, I wonder what was the first movie to do that.
Oh yeah.
The Changeling has a lot of those where you're like, oh,
That's why
fuck.
I love older movies in general. 'Cause
Yeah,
you do
you're
go,
like, that's where it came from. That was, at least to me, there's so many shots or so many things that happen in that to suggest paranormal activity that you see later on where you're like, oh, crazy. And yeah, that was great. And it had a cool little story. Like, it's not just like, oh, it's haunted and he has to kill this ghost or whatever. It's like, oh no, this ghost is leading him down like a murder mystery kind of a thing.
Well, I trust your judgment now after Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah.
Like, because older movies like The Exorcist, a lot of them can be kind of creepier, you know.
Right.
And like, and I was honestly like, kind of like, because I'd seen The Scream, and I was like, I don't know if I want to watch that. But I love just how fast paced and action.
Oh yeah, it moves at a clip, right? Where you're
Mhm.
like, it's a decent. I mean, it's a good chunk of movie, but it never feels like, oh, they could have cut this part out, or
Yeah.
this part kind of lags. It's like, it's moving.
I feel like that about The Thing.
The Thing's
where
great.
it's
Yes.
like so good, but even like looking back on it, it's like sure the physical effects or whatever weren't like by today's standards good, but you watch it, you're like, how the hell did they do that?
I
then?
know
Like,
all that like Tom Savini, like Night of the Living, all the Living Dead stuff. To me, I also think, even though you can tell, oh, that's like a practical effect, I think it's creepier because CGI. It's
do
like, well, that's
too.
just fucking pixels, man.
Yeah.
So like,
Mhm.
I watched Signs with my nephew maybe a couple days ago, because he was like, oh, I went and saw. He's in like 5th grade. He was like, oh, I went and saw the Five Nights at Freddy's, and he liked that game, and he was like, the movie really wasn't scary, and so I was like, oh well, let me put this on, because I couldn't be like, here, I'm going to show you The Shining.
Yeah.
But I was like, let's just,
Yeah, you want
it's
them
like,
to like scary
yeah,
movies.
it's tension. It's, it's like, let me just see. And he liked it, but he was also like, oh, those aliens look really bad. And it was because they're CGI. And you're like, if they would have used practical effects, it probably would have looked better. Because at least it's like, oh, they don't have to fuck around with the lighting, because it's like, oh, it's being lit how it's being lit.
Yeah, and like you talked about the CGI, whenever I see all the CGI stuff, it loses that movie magic.
Right.
You
Yeah.
just go, oh, they're on a green screen. Oh, that's so fake.
Yeah, they
Where
like,
with The Thing, you're sitting there going, oh my god, these guys, they put thousands of hours of work into like
when it's
these
the head
props.
is like pulling off of itself, and it's got all those fucking like strings.
Yeah.
And it's like green goop coming out. You're like, that is intense. And that one's I think like 80s, mid 80s, so another good kind of classic. I like watching, there's a little bit of nostalgia with watching movies from that time, because like you can remember your childhood a little bit, or things how they used to be, but also I feel like technology in movies has made things way more complicated. Like now in slasher movies, there has to be a reason why the phone doesn't work, or why they can't get on the
Same thing with,
internet.
like
Yeah.
Seinfeld, all the plots they don't make sense nowadays.
Yeah. You're like, what? Why wouldn't you just Uber Eats or something? Why wouldn't you just, whatever? Or like, there's cameras all over. Why wouldn't you just catch it? So watching that, it's just like, I miss when it was like a little bit more, you didn't have to write all these like pieces of dialogue to
Yeah.
explain why.
The power's out.
Right. Or like, they're the internet. I don't know what's going on with it, or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's just a simpler time, and we grew up a little bit in that era before cell phones, and
Right.
computers
get a
took over.
signal.
So, like you said, you do have that nostalgia of like
Yeah.
life was kind of like this,
Or just like, it's not like I'm not like in communities where this would be happening, but it felt like when I was a kid, you saw a lot more kids just out playing on their bikes, whatever doing. And now it's like, and just judging from my own family, like they all play with their iPad, they play video games. There isn't like that sense of like, I'm
The video
bored, I
games
guess
are
I'll
so
go.
cool now.
Yeah, like there's no like, oh, I'm kind of bored, so I guess I'll just like do something weird. You know, I guess I'll just go to the creek and look for frogs or whatever.
Build a dam.
But now it's like they don't do it. So it's like, I don't know, in some ways, when I'm around my nieces and nephews, there's some of them I'm like, I don't know how to relate to you at all. Because you're like not even a kid, you know, where it's like, what do you want to get up to? You and go find a trampoline and jump on it? And they're like, no.
Trampolines are gay.
Yeah. I'm playing Overwatch. And it's like, well, I don't want to play that. So you want to play Monopoly? And they're like, no. You know, like you start to feel like, oh, that's how our parents must have felt with us, where it's like, I don't know, fucking Ghostbusters something or other. They're into like ghosts now.
Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Like whatever they want, I guess. We'll just give them that.
That's weird.
I also like horror because there's like a ticking clock element, even if it's not literally a ticking clock. But like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, it's happening.
Well, you know something bad's gonna happen too.
The thing is, there's not many of us left. We got to get the fuck out of here. So it's like that. It helps the script move in a way that a lot of other action movies, you're like, Jesus Christ, this is all so formulaic.
Yeah, and then some action movies, you're not worried about anyone dying. Really,
Exactly.
you know?
You're like, he's fine. He's going to be fine. Oh, let me guess, in the final fight, there'll be a moment where you're like, oh my God, is he going to? No, he won't. The only movie that really kind of got me or tricked me was Toy Story 3.
I thought they were going to burn those toys. Yeah.
I was in the movie theater like,
I was Andy's age, so like I was going to college. I like sitting there watching the movie, just like, is this the end? Am I done? Am I past my prime?
Yeah, I was like, this might fuck me up more than anything else, more than any. Because at least in a horror movie, you know, like I'm gonna see some fucked up shit. I gotta get mentally prepared. But Toy Story 3, I remember being, and there's kids around.
Yeah,
there's kids in the movie theater, and I was
cover
like,
your eyes, kids.
What?
Yeah.
Can they do this? Is
That's
this
so
like?
funny.
Can they let that happen to kids? Can they?
Not
like,
Woody.
nah, they're all fucking burned up. The end of the movie. But it really got. I was just like, when they all started holding hands, I was like, no fucking way. Where you're almost like, I respect it.
That would have been a hell of an
That had to
ending.
be a lot of work.
They meld it down, recycle it into other toys.
Right? Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
like a new Buzz Lightyear. It's like, ah!
He's all fucked up. That really got me to a place, you know, where you're like, oh, I didn't think movies could make me get there.
Especially a Disney movie to do that too.
Yeah,
You're almost
yeah.
like, damn it.
You fucking got me. And some movies, there's nothing worse than feeling the manipulation and knowing it's happening. Me and David Bory went and saw, I mean, this is a while ago now, but we saw whatever the newest Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Yeah.
And you just, the whole time, you're like, you're fucking manipulating me into feeling like you're,
The animal cruelty.
the animal cruelty, the like cuteness, the like song where it's like, creep. You're playing creep at the beginning of this. Like, you're really like, it didn't seem to be self-aware that it was doing it. And it was just like, again, you thought like, is he going to die? Is this, and then you're like, just.
Oh yeah, that one got me too, because I was like,
They're going to rip them
I'm like,
apart.
they're not going to kill any of them. And then when Peter Quill's in space, I was like, oh shit, maybe they're actually going to kill him. Then they pulled a Toy Story 3.
Yeah, no, he's fine.
Classic.
He doesn't freeze in space or whatever. Like, yeah, you can see now that, not that anyone knew exactly what was going to happen, but those movies are struggling now.
Was that the last movie you've seen in the theaters?
No, the last movie I saw in theaters was, I went and saw, oh God, I saw The Shining.
Like they just rescreened it?
Yeah, they
That's
rescreened
awesome.
it when
They
I
should
was
do
in
that
North
more.
Carolina.
Yeah.
It was great. I mean, 6 people in the audience, or whatever, but it was great to see it on a big. I'd never seen it on the big screen. That was great.
Only 6 people there?
Yeah, I mean,
That's
it's
weirdly scarier.
It's like a Sunday at 10 p.m. or something. I was definitely going where I'm like, I don't want to be around a bunch of people. But speaking of that, I did last year when I was in North Carolina, I went to like the 1970s Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was in a movie theater in a closed mall. So I had to walk through a closed mall
In the movie
to get to the movie. and then the movie's in a mall.
Yeah.
And I was the only person there. And the movie theater, like, you know, when you get to a movie and it's like the last movie of the night, so they're already kind of pre-shutting down the concessions, and then you're like, let me get some popcorn. Blah. So they gave me all that for free. They're like, we already shut down the registers. They're like, you're the only one going to see that. So it added such a element of being a little, because I'd seen that movie a ton. I don't get scared at movies anymore. But now I'm like, oh fuck, I'm in a empty mall in a mostly empty movie theater. Like, this theater is definitely empty, but there might be one guy working this. And watching it, and kind of, I would always be clocking kind of like this, you know, where you're like the sides of the theater are illuminated so you could see a shadow if they were coming. And I was like, if I fucking saw a shadow coming, I would be full alert, terrified. So those were fun, where it was almost like a 4D experience that you couldn't pay for. Like, could I see this in an abandoned building? That would make it creepier. Like,
can y'all barricade the doors while I go in?
They should do like, you want to watch The Ring, but you're gonna be in the house, in the well,
Yeah,
by the well or some shit. Yeah, that'd be fun. But the newest
Pretty
movie,
cramped.
I saw the newest Exorcist, and it wasn't great.
I was about to say
I
it.
didn't hear good things.
It looked bad. I mean, I was pumped.
There's
I
2 girls
rewatched
now.
The Exorcist.
Yeah.
And
Have you seen the third one?
I have not.
Exorcist 3.
I heard that one's really good.
That one's a really good. George C. Scott is also in that. He plays like a police detective. But that one's interesting because it's more of like there's possession in it, but it's way more of like a catching a killer, kind of a thriller thing.
Okay.
But anyway, that brought it up. But what were you saying?
I don't even remember. Then I just watched then I watched The Exorcist and was like getting hyped to go watch it, and then the reviews were just like, this is dog shit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I heard the same things, and I was like, well, let me go see. And
Let me take a sniff myself.
Well, it's also like I was interested on maybe somewhat of a morbid level because David Gordon Green did it, and he of course did the Halloween trilogy, which of the first one I thought was really good.
Yes.
First one was really good. And then the second one, I was like, I don't like it, but it is interesting. He basically stuffed everything that could happen in a sequel for Michael Myers happens in the second one. Like stuff that already happened in other ones where it's like, now the town is starting a militia, blah, blah, blah. Maybe that's in the third one. I can't even remember anymore. But those movies sucked, I thought. The second and third Halloween were bad.
I watched the first one and I thought that was gonna be it.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, there's another one. Then I watched that one. I thought that was gonna be it. And then when it had a third
Halloween
one,
Kills,
I was just like,
and then Halloween
I'm good.
Ends.
I'm good
Yeah.
right now.
So he kind of, I don't know what it was so weird because they were like, this is going to be a trilogy. But then it seemingly after the first movie, they like, oh, we don't know what to do anymore. It's like, but you set this up as a trilogy. Why did you do that?
Like new Star Wars.
Yeah. It's like the prequels or something where you're like, what the fuck is this? So I was interested on a level of like, well, maybe The Exorcist because if nothing else, every movie of his is way different, which I kind of appreciate. Even if it's bad, you're like, well, some interesting choices there. So I went to the third one, and it was like, I went with a friend who's also a big horror movie guy. And, we were just like, it wasn't scary at all. It wasn't scary. No part of it was scary. It was more CGI, which, again, when you see the first one, you're like, it's gnarly because not only is it like, spinning her head around, puking in a bed, back to that.
Yeah.
But also, if you remember, like, Linda Blair in that movie, she's saying gnarly shit.
Dude.
I watched it recently for the first time, like just a year or two, and I was cracked up how much I was laughing at it. Like I did not know it was this funny.
Right. And
Your
it's
cunting daughter.
Yeah. Like it's
she's stabbing herself with the crucifix.
Yeah. It's like that. And so in the third or in the one I just saw, I think it's called Believer or whatever. It's like two girls who get into witchcraft. And they're probably, I don't know, they're like 13, 14. And then the scene of them being possessed for the first time is like one of them walks into like a mass and she's bloody down on her parts.
Down under.
And she's walking, and as the priest or whatever is doing his thing, and you're like, I remember at that point I was like, damn, this movie's gonna go crazy, and then that was really it.
Yeah.
They don't do anything else where it was like, oh, this like devil is possessing this girl, but they like tie her down in a chair and she just kind of sits there, and you're like, dude, I don't know. It was just
You're a
like
demon. Get out of
yeah,
there.
you're just kind of like, what?
Bill Murray could get out of being tied up.
Yeah,
in a chair.
yeah, exactly. You're just watching it like, why did they make this? Was there a big? Do they think there's like a big exorcist community out there? I don't think people in their like teens are being like, an Exorcist sequel.
Yeah.
Finally, like we're gonna see what they did with William Friedkin's work or whatever. So I don't know who it's for. That's also a trilogy. He has like 2 more of those movies. Like whatever deal he made with Blumhouse. I also don't understand Blumhouse's like business strategy, because they just release a bunch of stuff and most of it is garbage, and then some of it's okay, and I'm like, I don't know, how are they making money on all of this?
I don't know. It's hard nowadays.
Yeah.
A24 seems to be about the only studio that's like consistently putting out like good stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Man, we appreciate you taking all this time and spending
My
with us.
pleasure.
hanging
This
out,
was a
dude.
blast.
No, this was a longer episode than usual, but
Yeah, we made it
but
all the way through the
honestly,
movie.
you're just so passionate about film, and you
Oh
know.
yeah, any chance to talk about it, I love it.
Yeah, no, I could tell, but so yeah, thanks for coming on.
No,
We
I
really
appreciate it.
it.
My
Do you
pleasure.
have anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I mean, go to ZachToscani.com. That's where all my stand-up dates will be, and follow me on Instagram or Twitter or Threads, whatever people are on, TikTok, YouTube. Yeah, it's Zach Toscani everywhere.
Perfect, man. Well, thanks again.
Yeah, thanks for
Appreciate
having
you.
me. My pleasure. Thanks for all the gifts.
No problem.
Watching movies.